Hello, I am Alexandria Callahan. I'm the manager for our behavioral health department here at City of Hope in Chicago. Today I'm going to talk with you about sleep hygiene. I know this is something that impacts so many of our patients just with side effects from treatment, the added stress of a diagnosis. Even our caregivers probably have a lot of issues with the sleep. So I'm excited to dive into this topic. I will also be going over a sleep journal resource that we have available at our sites as well as online. So as we walk through it, if you don't have your sleep journal, I highly recommend that you get one, but I will definitely have screenshots of all that information too, so you can follow along at home with or without it. So to begin, I'm going to look at some of the common sleep problems that we see. So definitely when we look at sleep and cancer, we know that many people with cancer have trouble sleeping. Our treatment impacts our sleep, whether you're on steroids or just the regular body changes, even just that stress of knowing that you have a diagnosis and the unknowns that go along with that. Change in usual sleep patterns impacts our everyday activities. It certainly impacts our mood. You might find that you're a little bit more irritable just from a lack of sleep. Our appetite shifts. A lot of times people lose their appetite just because their body's tired and overworked. And certainly our cognitive functioning. I often have patients say, I can't find the right words. And it's not necessarily the chemo brain that a lot of us hear about, but it is just that lack of sleep. Our brains are mentally fatigued. At least 7 hours of sleep a night is advised in general for adults. A lot of times, though, especially with our patients, I've had many of them say, I'm lucky if I get 45 minutes or get a couple hours. So we're really going to look at different ways to help you get a place of relaxation, even if you can't fully get to sleep later on in this presentation. So insomnia is having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. So the short term lasts for a single night or a few days or a few weeks. The chronic insomnia lasts for 3 months or longer. So a lot of our patients have actually talked with us about that insomnia piece, saying I just can't really get to sleep or I'm waking up. It can cause people not to get the much sleep that they need. Fatigue will happen from that, the physical, mental, emotional feeling of tiredness. Feeling sleepy during the days, having trouble doing your usual activities due to a lack of energy. So you might find that you don't even really have the strength to do things anymore just because you're so tired. And then, of course, when you're having trouble falling asleep, you're tossing and turning. And a lot of times we get up and start moving around the house, or we go to watch TV, which starts to stimulate our brain again and wakes the whole system up. So it's a vicious cycle with that as well. And then certainly, if you wake up during the night, you might have trouble getting back to sleep. And if you had insomnia, it may actually get worse after the diagnosis and the treatment. A lot of times too, if you wake up during the night, I always recommend, even if you have to go to the bathroom, to have night lights or something that will guide your pathway to the bathroom so that you're not putting on all those big overhead lights and waking up your whole system. And the one thing I always tell people is do not open the refrigerator, because as soon as you open up the fridge, you have those bright lights in your face, waking your system up. And then we usually go and eat something. And when you eat something, you're waking up your digestive tract. So your body's saying, oh, I need to process this. I need the energy. It's time to be up, which is defeating your goal in getting to sleep. Hypersomnia is that feeling very sleepy during the day or wanting to sleep for longer than typical night sleep. So you're sleeping for 10 or more hours at a time. In children, it might be 12 or more hours. There's longer periods of deep sleep than usual, and you have trouble staying awake during the day. So even if you get, that full night's sleep, you wake up and you're still tired. And that sleepiness doesn't improve after you're sleeping or taking a nap. It's just always there. And it's not the same as that chronic fatigue you get from, the cancer treatment or diagnosis, but it's just this overwhelming sleepiness that and just makes it difficult to function in your daily activities. A lot of times people report being confused with the fatigue. As I had mentioned, that hypersomnia is feeling too sleepy and sleeping for long hours, where that fatigue is that lack of energy and exhaustion that does not improve with sleep. Sleep problems make cancer-related fatigue worse, And cancer-related fatigue can make the sleep problems worse. So it's kind of that double-edged sword of you're having these things both kind of working against you rather than for you. Daytime naps often make it very challenging to sleep at night as well. So if you're having trouble with getting the adequate sleep, we really recommend trying to be more active during the day versus napping and seeing if that does something differently. Restless leg syndrome. So feeling as if you have to move your legs when you're trying to rest or sleep. Your legs may feel itchy or irritated. It causes jerking movements similar to spasms that will keep you awake. This usually happens during the evening hours, which is unfortunate. I always tell people, even with your stress, your thoughts start to invade your mind at night when you're trying to get to sleep, because that's when our body is trying to relax and that's when everything floods towards us. So especially with the restless leg syndrome, you're up and you're moving throughout the day, and that's keeping the blood flow going. And when you lay down to relax, that's where those spasms and things start happening, because your body is in that uh, mode of, okay, I'm trying to ease and not have so much happening. And this is very common with chemotherapy. I've had some patients to report their steroids cause them to have that restless leg syndrome as well. And we have sleep apnea also. So short pauses in your breathing while you're sleeping. We have a lot of patients actually go through sleep studies and have the CPAP machines. I've heard, there's other techniques and things at facilities too that look at moving away from the actual breathing machines, but doing little procedures to open up those airways. I know I've had a lot of patients say that they don't like being connected to the machines, the tubing, the masks, things like that, especially if they're claustrophobic, can cause issues as well. And it doesn't always help because people aren't consistent with the treatment just because it is uncomfortable. But those pauses can last as long as 10 seconds and happen many times in one night. Many people snore and wake themselves up. This prevents the normal sleep cycle and causes a person to feel tired or sleepy during the day. It's rarely caused by cancer or treatment and is typically present prior to diagnosis. It's just with the rest of the cancer symptoms and side effects from treatment, a lot of times sleep apnea comes up more in the forefront because it's becoming more of an issue. Our patients are noticing, hey, I'm having these problems, where before they were able to just cope with it. So sleep and your cancer recovery. Uh, Cancer's impact on sleep. So brain tumors are primarily the diagnosis or metastatic can impact sleep, along with other functionings. Some surgeries, radiation therapy, and chemotherapy can also impact your sleep. Medicines such as steroids, I mentioned those before, impact the sleep cycle. And then you have all your treatment side effects that impact your ability to fall asleep or cause a person to wake up in the night. So pain is definitely one that impacts a lot of people. Peripheral neuropathy, fever, hot flashes, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, those leg cramps, sweating, incontinence or frequency to urinate, heartburn, shortness of breath, all of those things. And, for a lot of our patients, they don't even know when, these things are going to flare up or hit them. So it's almost like a double whammy. You're trying to take care of all of the facts as you're dealing with cancer. You know that you need the sleep to help your body recuperate and repair. And then your body is going through all of this stuff where it's exhausting. And then, of course, your lifestyle habits. So not getting enough physical activity during the day. I know it can be really challenging when you have that cancer-related fatigue or your body feels worn out, to get that motivation to get off the couch and do something, whether it's walking to the mailbox or going to the nearby park or even just doing some exercises in your living room. It can be really hard to get your body up and moving in that way. Taking longer naps or too many naps will also impact you. Falling asleep outside of the bedroom. Uh, it, we typically, recommend staying, like preserving the bedroom for the place where you sleep. However, when you take naps and things, a lot of times that is on the couch. So it's almost like creating a designated area where this is where I sleep and this is where I have a nap, just so that you're not sleeping everywhere. It's almost a way to discipline yourself so that your body doesn't become habitual with, oh, I'm sitting down, it's time to fall asleep. Spending a lot of hours on the screen strains your eyes. So I know a lot of us like to get lost in those rabbit holes of searching things or all the social media things, and you can just, get caught up in all the different games, things like that. And all of a sudden you look at, the clock, or you look up and you're just like, wow, I've been doing this for 3 hours. And that's a lot of strain on our eyes, which causes them to become very tired too. Tobacco use also impacts our sleep. It's kind of stimulates the system as well. Drinking alcohol and caffeine, again, stimulating your system. So it's really looking at what you're putting in your body as well to say, okay, well, is there a certain time where I need to cut myself off from, the caffeine, the coffee, or anything that way so that my body can unwind? Or are there other things that are keeping your system active much longer than you would like it to? The temperature of the room when you're trying to sleep. Is it too hot, too cold, or noisy? Those are all things that are going to impact you. And then, of course, if you have nightmares or sleep terrors, or if you sleepwalk, those are things that are going to interrupt your sleep and, cause extra stress or anxiety for you as well. So when we look at, the idea of calming the distractions, I mentioned some of these in the previous slide too, distracting noises, or having a busy mind, snoring bedmates, the tinnitus. So if you have that constant ringing in your ears, actually I had a patient reach out to me earlier this week. She's like, is there anything I can do for relaxation to help ease this? And, I know our acupuncturists have tried to help with that. I think we have some people that do acupressure too. And then, of course, we always recommend talking to your doctor, say, like, what will help with that piece? Because that is something that isn't easily rectified, just because it's a side effect from the treatment, something happening internally. And then we look at, quality of sleep. So making sure that you set a sleep schedule, keeping it consistent. Every night I'm going to go to bed at 9 o'clock, just so that your body gets used to that. We always recommend no tech in the bedroom. So when we think about, shutting off, all the electronics, I always tell people at least a half hour before you go to sleep. So, the TV, looking at your phone, you're not playing on the iPads, whatever it might be, you're giving yourself that break from the screen and those bright lights so that your brain and your eyes can relax and get refocused and get ready for bed. And then figuring out, how to relax before bedtime. So creating that routine where you can say, okay, I shut off all my electronics and then I go and take a nice warm shower, or I do some gentle yoga or stretching, or this is where I meditate and I pray, whatever it might be, something that helps you to start decompressing. And then again, controlling that room temperature. You don't want it too hot. You don't want it too cold. It's finding that Goldilocks, the happy, this is just right place. And then the benefits of getting good sleep. It boosts your brain activity. You're able to concentrate better. You have an increase in energy, so you can keep up with your daily routines. It strengthens your immune system. So definitely our patients with those compromised immune systems is looking at everything we can possibly do proactively to keep you healthy. It puts people in better moods. You might find that you're not as irritable as you were before with the lack of sleep. You might even find that, the things that were bothering you kind of roll off your back a little bit more. It's not things piling up on top of each other anymore. It's saying, oh, yeah, that really doesn't matter that much. It mattered before because I didn't have control over anything else. And I was so exhausted. Just I needed one more thing that was putting me over the edge. And you'll see that you have higher productivity. So definitely if you're able to concentrate better, you're able to function, you're going to be able to get more tasks done. So the sleep journal that I mentioned at the beginning of this, it's an interactive guide for healthier sleep. So that is actually what the cover looks like. It's from our cancer fighters, and that's available at all of our facilities if you go to the Cancer Fighters area. And then there's also an area on the website too where you can request a copy. So I'm going to walk through the highlights of it. So this journal, it's really designed to help you evaluate your current sleep, explore relaxing and energizing activities, identify your environmental preferences, apply techniques for improvement, and learn what you experience throughout the night. So when you look at that first section, the evaluate, how well are you currently sleeping? So it's really giving you that time to be honest with yourself. A lot of times, when we're sitting with our providers, we'll say, "Oh no, this is fine. I'm used to, not sleeping, so I guess it's all right." But, I really encourage you as you're going through this journal to evaluate it and say, "Okay, if in the ideal world, if I was able to have, great sleep, what would that look like? What would that feel like?" So when you look at identifying your current sleeping experience for areas of improvement, this is a really great place to start to critically look at all of that. And then you just look in the overall quality, the overall quantity, your difficulty falling asleep, your difficulty staying asleep, and if you feel like you're waking up too early. Is sleep something you enjoy? A lot of times, if you're having a lot of trouble sleeping, you're not going to enjoy it. It feels like a chore. So it's saying, okay, well, do I feel like I'm recuperating? Do I look forward to getting back in bed, or do I dread it? And if you're struggling with that quality of sleep, what do you think is the cause? So this is really your time to think, is it medically induced? Is it something I'm doing? Am I doing too much? Is my plate too full? Am I just not active enough where when it's time to go to sleep, I really don't feel like I need to? So those are all, great things to start looking at. And then when we start exploring what relaxes you and what energizes you. So that's a really important thing too. So on this page, they're looking at, the actions that sound relaxing for you to mark. So taking that warm bath, drinking a hot decaffeinated tea, reading a book, magazine, painting or coloring, listening to music. If you are going to listen to music, especially as you're trying to fall asleep, I always recommend making it almost like that spa music. You would see it like the end cap at Target, where there's no words, there's no really distinct melody. Because if there's music with words, or even the music that is just the melody to songs that your brain is going to be processing it. So it'll be processing the words, or it'll be singing along to that melody. So it's really important to make sure that you keep the sounds and the music as neutral as possible, just so that your brain doesn't feel like it has to be on anymore. And then, looking at, meditating, shopping online. I would be cautious on the shopping online, though. I've had a lot of people say, well, I do retail therapy, which is great to a certain point, but you want to make sure that you're not just buying to buy things or overspending also. It definitely can get into one of those rabbit holes I was talking about before, too. So making sure that you are keeping, the stress and the self-care in balance as well. So 8 tips to keep your mind to keep in mind, sorry, as you're nearing bedtime. Resist the urge to check your email. So like I said, shut off the technology, get a break from that. Actually, on my phone, I have a program that at 8 o'clock at night, it puts all of those apps, my emails, everything to sleep. So I actually, if I have to go in, there's a little warning that says, well, you're in sleep mode right now. Are you sure you want to deactivate it and use this for 5 minutes? And it'll actually tell me if I do that, when the 5 minutes is almost up, it gives me a little warning. So that's a nice way too to say, okay, this is part of my self-care. I'm going to put all of those things, the social media, the emails, everything to sleep at this time. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to bed at that time, but it's helping me with that unwind part. Be mindful when surfing the internet. Calming content is the key, especially right before you go to bed. You don't want to be looking at things that are starting to increase your anxiety or get that blood pressure going up. So it is looking at, I always tell people, search relaxation techniques. They can only help you. And I mentioned before, turning off the TV, and you can, for that too, set a sleep timer so it doesn't wake you up. Limit what you watch too. Try not to have stimulating shows right before bed. I had a patient who came to see me who was having a lot of trouble sleeping. and she was having nightmares. And she said, like, she kept dreaming about like her family members, close friends, people dying in the most horrific ways. And I asked her, what she was doing. What do you do before you go to bed? And she goes, I was watching forensic files. So you have to look at the content too, because if you're watching something that is eliciting, those ideas of, people being murdered or horrific things, and then it's translating into your dreams and saying, okay, well, maybe I should watch those earlier in the day if I enjoy them. And, perhaps it's, finding something else a little less provoking before I go to bed. Reading a book. However, you want to be cautious on that too. A suspenseful page turner might also have the same, reaction as the forensic files has done for my patient. I enjoy a caffeine-free drink. So making sure that, you have like a tea or something that's calming and soothing, but not something that's going to wake up your system. And write it down. Journaling is a great way too to get things out of your minds. I've had a lot of patients put a notebook next to their bed. Actually, I have one who has two notebooks. One is where she writes down all of the stressors, the to-do list, all of those things that are bothering her. And the other journal, she writes down three things she's grateful for. So she has her stress journal and her gratitude journal. And she'll do I've got to get all these things out of my mind first, and then she'll do the gratitude journal. So the gratitude is the last thing she thinks about as she's falling asleep. And try not to allow your mind to latch on to thoughts or worries that you're unable to do anything about in the present moment. And I certainly know that is a lot easier said than done. So I always tell people, like, just let those thoughts start drifting through your mind. You can acknowledge them, or that might be a great time for you to write them down so that you're not constantly going back to them. It gives yourself a break, or it gives you that permission to say, okay, I've had this thought. I know it's there. I can revisit it tomorrow. However, right now I don't have to hold on to it. So identify what feels the most soothing for you. So that's again, looking at your lighting. Do you need pitch black? Do you need some light? Do you need it fairly bright? I would be cautious with the fairly bright just because again, that keeps your body and your system awake. But having those little night lights trailing to the bathroom or a light on in the distance, that might be just the comfort that you need. And then making sure that you're looking at some of these lighting tips for your area. If you like the room really dark, you can use an eye mask or blackout curtains. Covering up the glow of electronics with a small sticker can be helpful. If you like the room semi-lit, you mentioned try that night light or even a sound machine with a built-in ambiance. So a lot of them have those soft colors, or even just change colors a little bit to create a mode of relaxation for you. And then we're looking at the sounds. So do you like no noise, white noise, louder noise? Again, with the noise too, you want to make sure that's not something that's stimulating you. And the temperature. Do you like it on the cooler side? Do you like it on the warmer side? And it's finding that happy medium. There's research that says that people tend to sleep better if it's a little bit cooler. However, if it's too cool, you might have a very hard time getting to sleep. Or if you're like myself, if I get too cold, I have to go to the bathroom. So then you have to get up and you have to go to the bathroom. And that wakes up your whole system a little bit. So it is finding, that right balance. And if you have, a spouse or a partner that's in the room with you too, it's figuring out how do you compromise to each other's needs so that you're both getting that good sleep. So applying the techniques to consider, it's identifying ways to help you go back to sleep should you find yourself awake at night. So guided imagery is a really great way, visualizing yourself in a peaceful place, somewhere where your body is relaxed, there isn't a lot of stress around you. Mindfulness practices are great. So even being in the moment. One of the main mindfulness practices I recommend to people is, focusing on your breathing and then going through your five senses. If you're laying in the room, even if it's pitch black, our eyes do adjust a little bit. So you can think about, five things that you might be able to see, things that you can hear or smell. And, you might say, like, I can't see anything. It's pitch black in here. I don't really hear anything. It's silent. And that's okay. But just going through and being present in the moment, even thinking about how are you laying in that bed? Do you have more weight on one area of your body than the other? Do you feel comfortable? Does your body feel supported? What would help you find, that sweet spot where your body just says, oh, yes, this is right where I want to be, and to feel just relaxed. And this can be really challenging too. If you're in a lot of pain, you're going to be tossing and turning a little bit. So it is figuring out what area you need to shift and adjust or prop up a little bit more. What will help you to find that level of comfort? The creating a nest. So if you don't fall asleep in about 20 minutes and you feel frustration rising, you need to get out of bed. If you don't interrupt the frustration, your brain will connect that negativity with your bed. So it is really figuring out, okay, well, what can I do then? If I'm tossing and turning, I'm getting more frustrated, do I need to find somewhere else to help my body to relax? And that's okay. It's okay to give yourself permission, especially as you're trying to create a new pattern for your sleep to improve that. And then making sure you have that bedtime routine. I know I mentioned that before too. So figuring out what you're going to do, as you're unwinding for the day, and trying to make that a ritual where it's every single day you do that so that it becomes a habit and your body gets used to it. And then it's not so hard to get to sleep because your body says, oh, yep, this is it. This is the stuff we do. I think it's important too to remember that you're not just checking things off the list, but you're actually consciously doing these activities, especially if you're engaging in meditation or some sort of, movement to help your body relax. You want to make sure that you are fully present in that experience so that your entire body is getting the benefits from it. So there is a 2-week sleep diary that is in your journal. And this is going to help you tracking all of those things. So on here too, it says, make sure that you're being honest with yourself and the process, just so that you're able to really track this for 2 weeks. And we use 2 weeks just because it takes about 2 weeks to create a new habit. And then, you need that additional time too to really solidify it in. So this is really an exploration where each of these days look the same. So you're going to jot down, the time you got into bed, what time did you try to go to sleep? So you might go to bed, but you might be reading a book for a while. So these times may differ. You might even find that when you get into bed, you do some breathing exercises, or I do some exercise actually for my eyes just to help them relax at the end of the day. So one of the things I do is I visualize a great big clock around me, and then I look at every spot on that clock to stretch out my eyes, help them to relax from staring at the screen all day. How long did it take you to fall asleep? This might be hard to really gauge. I know people have different apps on like their watches and things that help to track this stuff. So if you have that, that's will be a great resource. If you don't, just try to guesstimate. I went to bed at this time. I feel like I laid in bed for, 5 minutes before I started dozing off. Uh, definitely, you'll know how long it took you to fall asleep if you're tossing and turning. If you have that insomnia and you're looking at the clock, it's like, okay, well, I looked at the clock 15 times and it's been, 3 hours and I still haven't fallen asleep. That'll be a good gauge for you as well. And then looking at, how your sleep environment was, going back to that temperature, the lighting, the noise, if you woke up at all. And, how long did the waking times last? Did you wake up, you had to go to the bathroom, but you went right back to sleep? Or did you wake up, you went to the bathroom, you went back to bed, and then you tossed and turned for a while? And then, what time did you get out of bed for the whole day? And in total, how long did you sleep? So even if it's broken time, you want to make sure that you jot that down. Maybe you slept for 4 hours, you woke up for 45 minutes, and then you slept for another 3 hours. So that's important too, to see if that's a pattern for you. And then, of course, rating that quality of the sleep, how rested you felt when you woke up, how many times you napped or dozed during the day, and about approximately how long. If you had any alcoholic beverages, that impacts our sleep too. what time you had your last drink at, the caffeinated beverages, coffee, tea, soda, energy drinks, what time your last one was there, and if you tried any of the activities. And then when you're all done with those 2 weeks, there's a great little reflecting on my sleep personality. So, you're going to look at all of, the information from your tracking and, use the little bubbles here to say, these are the top 5 activities I found to be most relaxing because we know every day is different. So something that works today might not necessarily work tomorrow because your stress levels might be different or it's not really resonating with you. So it's important to have options to help you fall asleep because okay, well, number 1 didn't work, but I'm going to try number 4. Number 4 seems to be doing good right now. So it'll be a great way for you to play around and see, and maybe you'll make combinations of some of those techniques and activities as well. And then also too, as you've tracked all of this stuff, it's being able to say, okay, this is my ideal temperature. This is my lighting. This is the noise. This is the most ideal bedtime for me and my waking up time. So this is really getting you into that routine to say, okay, I'm going to create the ambiance and the setting for me to be able to get sleep. And this is the routine I'm going to make. So I'm going to try to go to bed around this time. I'm going to try to wake up at this time. And some relaxation techniques to help you with that. So really looking to at, some of those tips for coping and recovery, definitely, seeking out support, that whether it's counseling, telemedicine, employee assistance programs, things like that, that have resources for you. Sometimes, the trouble sleep is because there's a lot of stuff on our minds and we need that space, that outlet to help process it. As I mentioned before, creating that sleep hygiene ritual, adopting daily habits that support your mind-body wellness. So what are you doing throughout the day to help your body to recuperate? Reevaluating those goals and priorities. There might be, 1,000 things on your to-do list that you feel like I have to get this all done, but your body's fatigued and is tired. You're going through treatment. You're not able to do those 1,000 things. So it's saying, okay, well, what's the most important stuff? How can I break this list down so my body, my system aren't overwhelmed by all the things that I feel like I have to get done? And I can look at the things that I feel I'm able to get done right now. Establish and maintain healthy boundaries. So that's within our relationships, that's with ourselves, it's with activities, like everything around us. It's making sure that you're really surrounding yourself with those things that help nurture, your goals, your improvement of sleep, your better health, all of that. Being creative. A lot of times too, it's, simple as, picking up an adult coloring book or working on an arts and crafts project, something that helps to shut off that analytic mind and say, I'm going to get lost in, this project that I want to work on or working on a puzzle, something that allows that creativity to stir. Take time off. This can be taking time off from work, taking time off of your to-do list, even just taking time off from, the, things that you're being pulled to do. You're involved in a lot of different groups or activities, things like that. Even, some of our cancer fighters ambassadors, I've talked with them too about, their own self-care and saying, okay, it's okay if you put yourself on the hold list and not get a lot of phone calls right now, just because, the time is overwhelming or you need to refocus and making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So that applies to everybody, even our caregivers. A lot of times, our caregivers think, okay, well, my job and responsibility now is to make sure that the patient is okay. Well, so you're not going to neglect them, but you're going to say, okay, you know what? Your sister's been wanting to spend time with you. I'm going to call her up and see if she would like to spend the afternoon with you. And I'm going to, go get a massage. Something like that, where you're taking that time off. You're not shirking responsibility or feeling anything that way, but it's saying, okay, I need a little bit of a break so I can recuperate. And we've got all these people that want to help. So it's allowing them to have that opportunity. And then, of course, too, actively grieving losses. It can be very challenging going through cancer treatments and all the physical changes that the body goes through and all the things that we might miss out on. With compromised immune systems, I've had so many patients say, I want to go and see my grandkids at their different sporting events, but they're so crowded and there's so many people, and especially now there's cold and flu season. I don't want to get exposed to that. So there's a loss in that, not being able to just get up and go and do things or go into the grocery store. Even in the physical abilities, there's a lot of changes that happen where, it might be a little bit harder to get up and get moving, or you find that you're not as strong as you were. So these are all really important things to look at and recognize and honor and give yourself that permission to grieve. Some different wellness practices, and I mentioned counseling on the other one. I'll mention that a lot just because, it is really important to have that space to process everything you're going through. A cancer diagnosis is a traumatic experience, and a lot of times for patients, that's the first big trauma that has happened in their lives. So it's saying, okay, well, I was able to deal with stress a lot before, but this is different. So I need to figure out how I can apply the tools that I had before to the situation, or I need to learn new ones to help me along the way. Meditation is a great way to relax. And meditation comes in many different forms. I've had some people say, well, I can't sit in a room and hum. That is absolutely one form of meditation. However, going for a walk is another form. We call it a mindful meditation now, and walking meditation, where, you're very present in the moment. You are recognizing the birds flying overhead. You're paying attention to the weight on your right foot versus your left foot as you're walking, what cars are driving by. Are there leaves blowing around on the ground? Are there animals? Things like that. So you're just putting yourself in the moment and letting all the other, distractions, all those other thoughts that are jumping around, kind of take a back seat for a while. A self-massage or even going for a massage. But sometimes too, it just helps to, rub our hands a little bit, or, rub your neck or whatever it might be, just to help your body to feel that decompression. Movement, physical activities. So you're looking at, qigong, yoga, even turning music on and dancing around in your kitchen. Getting outside, even if you're sitting on the porch, taking in that fresh air. There's a lot of healing just having that fresh air. If you think about, when you transition from winter into, the warmer parts of spring, and, you start opening up the windows a little bit more because, well, in the Midwest, we go from, the 20 or the negative degrees to, 60s, and we're like, oh, this is perfect. So you open up the window and you smell that fresh air for the first time. That's just, it revitalizes you. So that's really one thing too. I always encourage people, if you've been sitting around, laying in bed or on the couch, even just trying to get to that front door, opening it up, just smelling the air for a minute to help your body and your system to wake back up. Yeah, arts and crafts, bubble baths, deep breathing, listening to music, laughter. And they always say laughter is one of the best medicines. So, watch your favorite comedy, or you invite people over that elicit that laughter and support for you. And then, of course, that practicing gratitude. I know I mentioned that before too, as you're writing things down, looking at, things that you are grateful for. So the healthy mind platter, this is something that we've used in a lot of other presentations too. I know when you meet with nutrition, they talk to you about eating the rainbow. And this is the rainbow for your mind, getting that good balance in there. So, you're looking at, the sleep that we were just talking about, but also getting that balance with your physical time. So, and it doesn't mean that you have to be out there, training for a triathlon or, running a lot. It can simply be, I walked from my front door to the mailbox and back, and that was great. So it's nothing extraordinary. I mean, certainly too, you can do whatever you need to, or what your body feels is capable of doing, and then looking at, that focus time. So being able to give yourself that moment to really check in, focus on yourself, giving yourself time in. So you're reflecting on, your sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, that help, integrate everything. That downtime. So it's not necessarily falling asleep, but this is kind of that time before you're getting ready to sleep where you're allowing that body to feel the relaxation. Connecting time, building those healthy relationships, and of course, playtime. So I'm actually going to move to this slide too. This gives some descriptions of all of those. And playtime is one, I think that's one of my favorite ones. I think I talk about that one the most actually, because a lot of times, especially as adults, we don't think about, that playtime. We associate that with kids, they're out there playing outside or they've got their games, things like that. But I have noticed that there's a lot more people now too that are getting together for game nights with their family, their friends, just being able to have an evening where, the phones are off, the technology is put away, and they're playing board games, they're playing card games, they're laughing, they're having a good time. And that's a really great way to help your brain to slow down and release and just enjoy the moment rather than worrying about all those other stressors. So another one is looking at the five senses. I know I kind of mentioned that too when you're having trouble sleeping, but even during the day, if you're sitting around saying, okay, I need to refocus, or I need something that can help me to feel connected to myself. So looking at this five senses grounding exercise, naming five things you can see, four things you can feel, three things you can hear, two things you can smell, and one thing you can taste. And that's a really great way to get you fully present with all of your senses and in the moment with your surroundings. Another great one is the breathing technique where you have your hand and you're using that as your tool. So you're inhaling as you move up one side and exhaling as you move down. And this is a great way to just connect your breath, and you're focusing on that inhale and the exhale. So your mind is clearing and just looking at, that physical movement, feeling that stimulation of your hand touching the other hand. And you can control the amount of breath. So you can go slowly on that inhale, and it's similar to if you put a count to it. I'm going to inhale for 4 counts. So you're thinking inhale, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to hold it at the tip for 2 counts, and then I'm going to exhale for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that's a nice way to kind of challenge yourself too, and really connect with your breath. Feel, does it feel like it's stuck in the chest as you're trying to put that rhythm to it, or is it flowing freely for you? And then we have some other techniques for relaxation as well. The thymus tap. So your thymus is that little gland where the collarbones meet, and just gently tapping on it with a few fingers helps to stimulate your immune system. It gets those T cells moving. So this is a really great thing too, and it's a mindfulness meditation too. You're breathing, you're focusing on the tapping. The quick coherence technique, that's your heart-focused breathing. So that's helping to bring that balance back when you're stressed or worried, overwhelmed, just feeling that anxiety. This is great too if you're having trouble getting to sleep. Putting one hand on your heart, one on your abdomen, and really focusing on breathing into your hands. Activating those thoughts and thinking about things that bring you relaxation. You might be closing your eyes, thinking about being out on the water, if that helps to relax you, and thinking about if you're on a boat, the swishing of the boat side to side, or the water hitting the side of it. So different things. And it's amazing when we start thinking about those different circumstances, especially if we've experienced them a lot, our bodies, our brains will put ourselves there. I had one patient, he was doing a guided meditation with me, and he had visualized going to his family's yearly reunion. And they'd always do it in the summer with great big barbecue. And afterwards, he said that he could actually smell and taste the barbecue, and he could smell some of the flowers. His aunt had a lilac bush. So all of those senses were coming back to him as he was thinking about all of those things. So it's really incredible how our minds can work with us too to help us get to those places of relaxation. And then certainly to the ear massage. If you've listened to some of my other presentations, I would call this one your party trick. So there's a lot of stress and tension that we hold in our necks, and we don't really think about that. We're going through our everyday life, and especially now with all the technology, we're usually sitting there like on our phones. Sometimes we have the bad posture of our head leaning forward too. And there's a lot of tightness in here because we're not using that full range of motion. Even our cars now have backup cameras, so we don't have to look behind us as much anymore. So with the ear massage, what I always have people do is look as far as they can over the right shoulder and then do the same on your left shoulder. And then you come back and for about 30 seconds to a minute, you're just gonna rub your earlobes. You're gonna, massage, up and down, pulling them. All right. And then when you're done, you're gonna once again look over your right shoulder and your left shoulder. And hopefully you see that your range of motion has increased. So that's a really great way too to just release a lot of that tension in there. And you can do it as often as you'd like. And it might not 100% take away the tension, but it definitely helps to get that body relaxing and moving around a little bit more. So, and lastly, just a little bit of a recap. I know for a lot of people, sometimes they're more visual than auditory. So I like to have a lot of different, tools for you to look at so that things do stick with you. Now, this one says, to help your kid or teen with ADHD or sleep, but this, it really applies to anyone. It's such a great resource. So again, looking at those sleep routines, your pre-bed routine, um, cooling down, so finding those ways to help your body to relax, find that balance. Now, if you need white noise or even some like nature sounds, things like that, making sure you shut off all the electronics. Avoid the melatonin. So I know of a lot of people that will take melatonin to help them get to sleep. But using it on a consistent, regular basis actually doesn't always help you with the sleep. It's almost counterproductive. So you want to make sure that you're working with like a naturopathic provider or your physician to make sure that you have the right dosage and you're not overusing it. Because we definitely don't want you to be too sleepy or have any complications from the things that are supposed to be helping you sleep. And then avoiding naps if you're finding that they're interrupting your regular bedtime routine. And make sure that you get moving, making sure that there's some sort of exercise or daily activity that will help you as you're navigating through. And then some basic references. Now we have the American Cancer Society, so they have a lot of tools and suggestions and things for our patients as you're navigating through any of the issues and things. The Sleep Journal for Cancer Fighters, like I mentioned, you can get them at our Cancer Fighters areas in the hospitals, but you can also go to the websites. And then Dr. Daniel Siegel, so that's the Healthy Mind Platter. So there's a little bit more information on there too if you're interested. And I want to thank you for your time. And yeah, as always, if you have any questions or need to talk to anyone, certainly our staff are available. You can always reach out to us through the Cancer Fighters. We're happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you so much, and good luck with your sleep.